Hello guys! In this video we will take a look at how to return a resource with its relationship from a REST API endpoint. Earlier in this video series we established that travels can have many tours. Now let's return a travel resource with tours that the travel has. In the OpenAPI document I created tours endpoint that really works in the same way as travels, right? We have get tours, lists tours, and then we also have a get tour by ID. And I also added a tour schema right over here. As you can see, neither list travels nor travels by ID endpoint include any tours right now. So let's go ahead and update OpenAPI so the travel can include the tours it has. Let's go ahead and add a required property called tours after the number of days, and then at the end of the travel schema we create this property, and all we have to paste is tours. That's the array. Items will be component schema tour, and the schema tour is right below. Let's go ahead and take a look at OpenAPI preview. And now if we open travels, we will see that travels also include tours. Now let's go ahead and implement it in the code. As you can see in a routes v1 folder, I also added a folder tours where I included the index file, right? I have two routes, list tours and get tour by ID. I also included controller, and in this controller I'm returning collection, right, to find all, and also I'm returning find by primary key. And then finally I have a tour resource, and this tour resource does the mapping, and then it basically returns again. It has a collection, a static method, and the item. So, and we can see that the tour resource and travel resource look quite similar. So we pretty much do the same thing. We have item and we have a static method collection. Looks like there is some code duplication here, which we want to resolve, right? We can create a parent class that we can call a resource, and both travel resource and tour resource can extend from that class, and the methods that are common to those classes, right, we can push into the parent class. Let's go ahead and do that. In the src folder, let's create a new folder called resources, and let's go ahead and move tour resource, and let's go ahead and move travel resource in those two folders. And we're gonna go ahead and update the links so our code is still working. So now let's update the code in both travel and tour resources. So first let's take tour resource and put the following code in there. We are going to keep tour entity, and we're gonna import a base resource. So we're still gonna keep the tour from the models, and when we're gonna be extending the base resource class, we're gonna send two generic, the tour and tour entity, right? And then we're gonna have an item method, and this method basically gonna be doing our mapping. And then we're gonna return tour resource as we did before, and we're gonna export default tour resource. In the same way, let's go ahead and update travel resource. In the travel resource, we're still gonna keep the travel, and we're gonna import it from models travel. And here we're gonna again import a base resource, which we will create in a minute, and then we're gonna import also tour resource and tour entity from the tour resource, right, that we just created. We're exporting travel entity, which will be the same. This type will stay the same, except for we're gonna add the tours property, and this property will be array of tour entities, right? We're gonna be exporting the base resource as well, and we're gonna be putting generics as travel and the travel entity. And then we're gonna keep item method, and this item method again gonna be doing the mapping. At the end, we're gonna tack on the tours property, and this tours property will take the tours resource and we'll run a collection method on it so we can get the array of tours. Then again, we're gonna return travel resource and export default the travel resource class. Now let's go ahead and create a base resource. We'll call it base resource.ts file. Let's go ahead and put the following code in the base resource. Import API error. We're going to create a class base resource, and we put the generics attributes that's going to come from the model and entity. So the instance will be type of attributes, and we're going to have a constructor where instance can be the model that will get returned or null. And if there is no instance, we're going to throw a new API error that we already did. And the error will be not found error with a status 404. And then if there is an instance, we're going to assign it to this instance. Now we're going to create the item method. And in this method, we're just going to be throwing an API error saying that the method is not implemented. So whoever is going to be extending from this base resource class, right, they need to implement item method in their child class, the same way we implemented it in tour resource and travel resource. So next, we will put this static collection method that was duplicated in all our resources, right? We're going to have entities, which will be array of attributes or the models. Then it's going to return an array of entities. So we're going to do the map method and instance method, and then we're going to export default base resource. Let's go ahead and fix some errors here. The first error that we have is name method not implemented is not assignable to the type. So it means we don't have this name yet in our custom error. So let's go ahead into errors, and we'll have an API error right here, and we can add another type method not implemented. And also we have a new code right here, not imp. Well, let's go ahead and add that code as well. Now we can update API error TS file, and those errors in the new API error went away. However, we have another issue, right? We have the types right here that the static member cannot reference class type parameter. It is okay for the non-static method item to reference those parameters, but however, we cannot reference those types in a static collection. One way to do this is to make a collection also non-static method, right? But so far we did this, and it seems to be kind of working well, so we don't have to instantiate. We can call a collection method right on the class. So let's keep it that way. So the way we're gonna go is actually we can wrap the base resource class into a function and return this base resource class, and we can pass A and E generics to the function rather than to this class. Because class in JavaScript is really not a class, it's just a constructor function. If people come from classical languages, they may misunderstand that the class is a blueprint. It is not. In JavaScript, the class is just a constructor function, so it means we can wrap it into another function and return it. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's create a function, base resource, and let's go ahead and wrap this in the base resource as well, right? Let's save it. We're gonna go and remove the generics from the class level, since we already put it on the function level. So now we can return this class. Now we can use those generics to type the collection parameters and return. However, the travel resource now has an issue and a tour resource has an issue. And this is because we have the base resource and it's not a function. Well, first of all, in the base resource, let's go ahead and rename this class as a resource. Now let's go ahead in the base resource and call the base resource as a function. Now we got everything fixed. Here we have a tour resource and collection. That's the only issues. But if we go in a tour resource, and again, instead of base resource, we need to call it as a function. Let's go do just that. And everything now turned green, so it fixed our errors. Let's go ahead and save everything. And now we can go ahead and test the API using OpenAPI document. Let's click on OpenAPI YAML. Let's go ahead and type yarn dev. So we can go ahead and try out the list travels endpoint. Let's hit execute. And we got an error that we cannot read properties of undefined using map. Let's go ahead and take a look what happened. As we can see, the issue is in the travel resource on line 22. So let's go to travel resource, and on the line 22, we have tours resource collection. We are calling tours resource, but it seems like we don't have it. So what we forgot to do is to add a relationship when we query travels. So let's go ahead, and in the travel controller, we need to add the relationship that we want to have travel with tours right here when we call the collection, and also right over here when we do find by PK. So in travel find all, let's include tour, and then we need to import the tour as well. And we'll do the same thing for find by PK, and also we're going to be including the tour. Let's go ahead and save it and go to Open API again and see if we're going to have a little better luck right now. Open list travels and hit try it out and hit execute. And as you can see, we got travels back. We got one travel, and this travel includes tours now. So not only we have ID, name, slug, and number of days, but it also includes the property with an array of tours. This is how you return a resource with its relationship from the REST API endpoint. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.